The Zar fleet hovered over Earth like a storm cloud, their ships casting long shadows over cities and oceans. From their view on the bridge of their flagship, Commander Velor observed the blue and green planet below with a cold, calculating gaze. The humans had been quick to react, as the Zitarax had predicted, but something about their response felt wrong. Too coordinated. Too perfect. We expected chaos. Velor muttered to his communications officer, Zather. Why do they seem prepared? Zather's eyes flicked over his readings. Sir, their communications are encrypted beyond our standard methods. They've deployed defense systems that we have no records of, advanced for a species this young. Velor frowned. The Zitarax prided themselves on their intelligence networks, but nothing about Earth's military capabilities had suggested they were on the cusp of interstellar conflict. It wasn't just technology that troubled him. It was the utter calm with which humanity responded. Earth's governments had come together as one, uniting under a single banner to face the invaders. At that moment, a transmission crackled through to their fleet, coming from a human representative, one David Reynolds. A former astronaut turned political advisor, Reynolds was considered a figurehead in the human leadership. His face appeared on the communications screen, calm, even genial, but Velor sensed something behind those eyes. Something far older than his years. Commander Velor, Reynolds' voice rang out, clear and authoritative. We've been expecting you. We suggest we skip the formalities and get straight to business. I'm sure you've come to discuss terms of peace, but first, we'd like to show you something. Reynolds' expression didn't change, but Velor saw something flicker behind his gaze. Before he could respond, a holo projector flickered on in front of him. The image was of a metal object, sleek, alien, with strange, glowing runes etched along its surface. It didn't belong to any known species, certainly not the humans, and it radiated an energy unlike anything Velor had ever encountered. This, Reynolds continued, was discovered in Antarctica. It predates your known history, your records, and possibly even your species. We've only just begun studying it, but we believe it was left by the race that seeded life throughout this galaxy. Velor's mind raced. He'd been briefed on the possibility of ancient artifacts, lost civilizations. But this was something far beyond anything the Zitarax had encountered. How had humanity, a species barely emerging into space, come into possession of such a relic? Before he could process the full implications, Reynolds' voice cut through again. We'll be sending a team to examine it further. We would appreciate your cooperation, Commander. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Velor staring at the strange artifact. The image of Earth loomed in the background. So small, so insignificant compared to the scale of the galaxy, but now, for the first time, it seemed somehow significant. There was more to humanity than met the eye, and the Zitarax had underestimated them. The next day, Earth's leaders, alongside David Reynolds and his team, prepared for the formal meeting with the Zitarax diplomats. The venue was the United Nations headquarters in New York, an iconic symbol of Earth's unity. The building, a modern fortress of glass and steel, was surrounded by security, but the real focus was on the towering alien ships in the sky, casting shadows over the city. The people of Earth watched, breathless, as history unfolded. Inside the UN Assembly Hall, the Zitarax delegation entered in a procession of dark, ceremonial robes, their towering figures casting a chill over the room. Velor stood at the front, flanked by his second-in-command, Zather, and several other officers. The sheer presence of the aliens made the air feel thicker, heavier, as if the very room was aware that something monumental was about to happen. David Reynolds was already seated at the head of the human delegation, flanked by military advisors, scientists, and government officials. Unlike the Zitarax, the humans seemed small and unassuming, yet there was something commanding about Reynolds. His cool demeanor set the tone as he gestured for the Zitarax to sit. "Welcome to Earth, Commander Velor," Reynolds said, his voice calm but firm. "We are ready to begin our discussions." Velor nodded stiffly, his sharp black eyes scanning the humans seated before him. "We are here for peace, as we have with all emerging civilizations. You will find that the Zitarax are efficient, but fair." His voice was rich, deep, and echoed slightly as if the walls themselves were reverberating his words. "But understand this, humans, our empire spans hundreds of worlds. Your planet will fall under our protection, or suffer the consequences of defiance." Reynolds smiled thinly. "I'm sure you're well aware, Commander, that we've been monitoring your movements for some time. Our defenses are not weak. We're not here to surrender, but we do wish to avoid conflict, if at all possible." There was a moment of silence as the Zitarax officers exchanged unreadable glances. Reynolds was giving nothing away, but Velor could feel the undercurrent of something deeper at play. He'd assumed that humanity would be easy to manipulate, but there was something disconcerting in the way they conducted themselves. This wasn't a species on the edge of extinction. It was a species preparing for something. "We came across an interesting discovery," Reynolds continued, breaking the tension. He motioned toward a nearby screen, and a holographic image flickered to life, showing an aerial view of the Antarctic region. The camera zoomed in on a desolate, ice-covered landscape before cutting to a strange metallic structure buried beneath the ice. "We have reason to believe this structure predates any known civilization," Reynolds said. "It is not of human origin, nor is it like anything you have in your archives. We believe it was left by an ancient race, a race that may have shaped the very fabric of this galaxy." Velor's gaze fixed on the image. The structure was vast, seemingly endless beneath the ice. Its design was nothing like the architecture of any known species. His heart skipped a beat. Could this be the creators they had heard whispered about in ancient texts? He had dismissed it as myth, but now he wasn't so sure. For a long moment, no one spoke. Velor's thoughts raced as the implications of what Reynolds had just revealed sank in. "We believe," Reynolds added quietly, "that you should be aware of what we found before any other actions are taken. Our people have been waiting for this moment for a very long time." The air was thick with tension as the Zitarax diplomats exchanged glances. Something was happening, something far larger than either side had anticipated. Velor straightened. "And what is it you want from us, humans?" he asked. Reynolds' eyes never left him. "To learn the truth, together, and to ensure this galaxy doesn't repeat the mistakes of its past." The following days were filled with intense study and careful observation. The Zitarax delegation remained stationed on Earth, while their scientists and historians delved into the rich tapestry of human history. Commander Velor had ordered his officers to comb through every accessible record, every fragment of ancient knowledge. It was critical to understand what humanity had kept hidden. And yet, the more they dug, the more the Zitarax were forced to confront something unsettling. Human history, it seemed, was far older and far more complicated than any galactic records had indicated. From the moment Velor's team accessed humanity's oldest texts, it became clear that Earth's narrative was not a simple one. Records from ancient civilizations, from the Sumerians to the Mayans, contained references to visitors and gifts from the stars, speaking of gods who had walked the earth in times long forgotten. Even more troubling, there were traces of an ancient technology, one that far exceeded the capabilities of contemporary humans. The Zitarax had long prided themselves on their archival systems, but the information hidden on Earth defied all conventional understanding. It was as though humanity's past had been deliberately obfuscated. Key details about human development, especially their earliest days as a species, were locked behind layers of enigmatic riddles, as if they were meant to be deciphered only by those with the right knowledge. "We are seeing patterns," said Zar, Velor's most trusted historian, as he sifted through the digital archives. "Ancient cities, technologies, these are not the remnants of primitive life. They are too sophisticated, too deliberate." Velor studied the screen intently. The records showed evidence of cities that had been destroyed and rebuilt, some long before recorded history had begun. But there was something else that stood out. Deep in the archives, Velor found an old star map with coordinates that didn't match any known locations in the galaxy. "It's from Earth itself," Zar said, pointing to the map. "These points, they align with other star systems across the galaxy. It's as if humanity, or whoever came before them, mapped out these locations with purpose." Velor rubbed his temples, a growing unease settling over him. This can't be right. There's no way humanity could have had the capability to explore these systems so long ago. The more the Zitarax unearthed, the more the evidence suggested an unsettling possibility. Humanity wasn't a fledgling species, not by a long shot. They had been part of something far greater, something lost to time. That night, as Velor mulled over the implications, an encrypted transmission arrived from Earth. It was from David Reynolds. The message was simple but cryptic. "You have started to uncover the truth, but you're only scratching the surface. The real discovery is buried deep within." Reynolds had already known what Velor would find. There was no turning back now. The Zitarax were no longer just invaders on a distant world. They were players in a game far older than the galaxy itself, and they had only just realized how little they knew about the true history of humanity. The deeper the Zitarax studied, the more anomalies began to emerge, strange disturbances in their systems that couldn't be explained by conventional technology. It started small, with brief glitches in communication systems and flickers in their navigation displays. But as the days passed, the malfunctions grew more frequent and more severe. Ships within the Zitarax fleet began to experience unexpected drops in power. Entire sections of the fleet went dark, only to reboot on their own minutes later. Some ships even reported sudden gravitational distortions, as though the very fabric of space was bending around them. Velor paced his command deck, watching the erratic readings flicker across his console. Something wasn't right. "Report," he barked at Zar, who was hunched over the data streams. "It's the human electromagnetic field," Zar said, his voice tight with disbelief. "We've never seen anything like it. It's causing interference with our systems. Power surges. Systems failing in ways that shouldn't be possible." Velor rubbed his jaw. The humans, with their primitive technology, shouldn't have been able to generate such sophisticated disturbances. And yet, there was no denying the pattern. It was as if Earth's electromagnetic field was alive, pulsing in unnatural rhythms. The Zitarax had expected to encounter a primitive species, one to be swiftly assimilated. Instead, they were facing something far more dangerous, a force of nature. The question gnawed at Velor's mind: what could cause such interference? Was it the artifact, the buried structure beneath the ice? Or was it something else entirely, something that humanity had long been hiding? The Zitarax commander's thoughts were interrupted by a sudden, urgent transmission from Earth. It was from Reynolds himself. "We need to talk," Reynolds said, his tone grave. "There are things you need to see." Later that day, Velor and a select group of his officers boarded one of the Z-Tarax shuttles and made their way to Earth's surface. They were heading to Antarctica, the place where the mysterious structure had been found. Reynolds had insisted they come, but the Z-Tarax were cautious, unsure of what to expect. There had been too many unanswered questions, too many inconsistencies. The shuttle touched down at a remote base on the outskirts of the frozen wasteland, where a small team of humans was already waiting for them. Reynolds was among them, standing against the frigid wind, his expression unreadable. As Velor stepped out of the shuttle, the alien commander couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental was about to unfold. "We've uncovered something," Reynolds said simply, gesturing toward the ice-locked terrain. "Not just the structure. Something older, more powerful." Velor followed Reynolds's gaze as the human pointed toward the horizon. The ground in front of them shimmered, faintly, as though the very air was distorting. "What is it?" Velor asked, his voice low. Reynolds turned to him, his eyes hard. "We believe it's a system that's been dormant, but not anymore. Something's waking up." The air around them seemed to hum, vibrating with an energy that neither the humans nor the Z-Tarax could explain. Something buried deep in the earth was stirring, something that had been lying dormant for millennia. The Z-Tarax were no longer the invaders. They were trespassers on a world far older than they had ever imagined. The Antarctic base was silent, save for the hum of distant machinery. The Z-Tarax, their faces grim, followed Reynolds and his team toward a massive excavation site buried deep beneath the ice. The cold air cut through their armor, but it was nothing compared to the growing sense of unease in Velor's chest. Whatever was beneath the frozen expanse wasn't just an artifact. It was something much larger, and the entire operation felt wrong. The Z-Tarax had been trained to recognize when the tide of history was about to shift, and it was becoming clear that this moment was more pivotal than any of them had anticipated. Reynolds led them through a network of tunnels, each more advanced than the last, until they reached a vast underground chamber. The structure was awe-inspiring, an immense, cavernous space carved into the bedrock, its walls lined with intricate markings and glowing symbols. At the center of the room stood an enormous, geometric formation, a crystalline object pulsing with an otherworldly light. Its presence filled the room, casting eerie reflections across the walls. "This is it," Reynolds said quietly, his voice betraying no emotion. "The heart of the system." Velor stepped forward, his eyes wide. The crystalline structure radiated an energy that felt like it was resonating deep within his chest. It wasn't just alien, it was ancient, predating even the oldest civilizations in the galaxy, and it was calling to them, an unspoken force tugging at the very fabric of reality. "What is this?" Velor asked, his voice laced with both awe and dread. Reynolds didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked over to a control panel embedded in the floor, its surface covered in symbols that no Tarax had ever seen. With a careful movement, he activated the panel. A low hum filled the chamber, and the crystalline object flickered, its light pulsing more intensely now. Suddenly, the air around them seemed to vibrate. The floor beneath their feet trembled as the chamber came to life. The walls shimmered, revealing complex networks of what appeared to be data streams. Energy flowed through the structure, coiling and uncoiling in mesmerizing patterns. It was a living thing, alive in a way that defied logic. "This," Reynolds said, his voice strained with urgency, is what has been dormant for millions of years. Humanity's legacy. Our ancestors, what you would call the creators, they built this system. This is the foundation of everything. Our technology, our biology, even our very existence. We are the product of this system. Velor stared at him, his mind racing. This wasn't just an advanced civilization's technology. It was a living archive of the galaxy's origins, a key to understanding the universe itself. "Why haven't you told us this before?" Velor demanded, his voice rising with frustration. Reynolds met his gaze evenly. "We didn't know until recently. We've been studying the artifact from Antarctica for years, but it was only when we unlocked the last key, your arrival, that we understood what was really at stake. This system, this energy field, has been dormant, but it's been reactivating since your fleet entered Earth's orbit." Velor's stomach twisted. This wasn't just a discovery. It was a warning. The awakening of this system wasn't merely a quirk of nature. It was a response, an activation triggered by the Ztarax's arrival. Something had been waiting, and whatever it wasn't friendly. Suddenly, the light from the crystal flared, and a deep, resonant sound echoed through the chamber. The walls seemed to shift, and strange geometric patterns began to appear on the floor. Energy crackled in the air, and an intense pressure built in Velor's chest. It was as if the very planet itself was preparing for something. David Reynolds looked at Velor, his expression dark. "We didn't awaken this power, Commander. It's been here all along. And now it's time to choose." Velor's mind raced as he realized the full scope of what humanity had uncovered. They were no longer just a young species. They were the key to a far greater power, a power that neither the Ztarax nor any other species in the galaxy had ever truly understood, and it was starting to awaken. The crystalline structure pulsed with a brilliant light, its glow growing more intense with each passing second. The hum in the air deepened, a low vibration that seemed to resonate from the very core of the Earth. For a moment, everything seemed to stand still, as though the world itself was holding its breath. Velor's instincts kicked in. The Ztarax were a species built on precision and order, but this was chaos. The air around them was thick with an energy they couldn't comprehend. The floor trembled beneath his feet as the chamber's walls shifted once more, revealing long-forgotten pathways, hidden recesses, and strange, alien technology that should not have been there. This power, Zather whispered, his voice filled with awe and fear. "It's beyond anything we've encountered. It's not just technology, it's alive." Reynolds stepped forward, his hand raised to the glowing crystal. The symbol on his wrist, a mark that had long been a mystery to the Ztarax, seemed to pulse in time with the heartbeat of the structure. Velor narrowed his eyes, realizing that Reynolds wasn't just a human diplomat. He was something more. The truth of humanity's origins was becoming clearer, but it was far stranger than anything the Ztarax had imagined. "It's not just a power source," Reynolds said, turning slowly to face Velor. "It's a connection, a conduit to something far greater. Humanity. We were designed to awaken this system, to activate it when the time was right." Velor's mind reeled. The humans had always seemed primitive in comparison to the Ztarax, yet now it was clear that they were a species born from something much older and far more advanced. But this system, it was not just an artifact of an ancient race. It was a weapon, a tool, a living force that could reshape the galaxy. "The question is," Reynolds continued, his voice dark and measured, "whether the galaxy is ready for what's about to come." Velor's thoughts raced. The Ztarax had always believed themselves to be the apex of evolution, the rulers of the stars, but now it seemed they had stumbled upon something far beyond their understanding. The system wasn't just a relic. It was a gateway to a power that could control life itself, that could change the balance of the universe. A sudden, violent tremor shook the chamber. The walls of the underground facility cracked, sending shards of rock and ice flying. The crystalline structure flared brighter than ever before, the energy it emanated now visible in waves of blue and gold, stretching out in tendrils that wrapped around everything in their path. Reynolds looked at Velor with an expression of urgency. It's beginning. The system is waking up faster than we anticipated. If we don't act quickly, it could spiral out of control. Velor felt the pressure in the room intensify. The energy was no longer just a force in the background. It was now part of the very atmosphere, tugging at his mind, pushing him toward a precipice he couldn't fully comprehend. Something deep within the earth was stirring, something ancient and dangerous. The Zitarax had come to conquer, but now they were standing on the edge of something far more powerful than anything they had ever faced. Reynolds took a step toward the crystal, his expression resolute. "We can't let this power fall into the wrong hands, Commander. There's no going back from this." For the first time since the Zitarax had arrived, Velor hesitated. The choice was clear now. Humanity was not the young species he had believed them to be. They were the keepers of a power far greater than anything the galaxy had ever known. And if the Zitarax chose to oppose them, it would mean a war unlike anything the universe had ever witnessed. The question was no longer whether to conquer Earth, but whether they could control this power at all. And in that moment, Velor realized that the Zitarax might have made a grave mistake in underestimating humanity. The ground beneath them shook violently, sending tremors through the walls of the chamber. The energy emanating from the crystal surged, crackling through the air like a storm on the verge of breaking. Velor could feel it deep in his bones, a pressure unlike anything he had ever known. The system was awakening, and whatever it was beyond their ability to control. Reynolds stood firm, his face tense but resolute. This is not just power, it's the very foundation of life in this galaxy. It can reshape entire star systems. Control time, space, even the laws of physics themselves. But it needs a guide, a steward, someone to wield it. Velor's eyes narrowed. "And you think that's you?" Reynolds met his gaze steadily. "I'm not alone. Humanity as a whole is connected to this system. We were designed for it long ago. We don't just control it, we are it. And now the system is waking up, whether we're ready or not." The Zitarax commander's mind raced. Everything he had ever known about power, about conquest, seemed insignificant in the face of this force. This wasn't just about subjugating a planet. It was about dealing with something that could unmake the galaxy itself. If humanity was tied to this force, then the entire balance of power had just shifted. The Zitarax were no longer the dominant species. They were intruders on a stage far larger than they could have ever imagined. But there was no turning back. The Zitarax had come to conquer, and their fleet was still hovering above Earth, watching, waiting. If they did nothing, the system would spiral out of control, and that would be a threat to everyone, not just the Zitarax. But if they tried to take control of it, they would face the full might of humanity, armed with a power that could bend the very fabric of reality. "What do you want from us?" Velor asked, his voice low, measured. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He had spent his entire life preparing to lead his people to dominance, but now he wasn't sure what was left to conquer. Reynolds stepped closer to him, the intensity in his eyes palpable. "We don't want to fight you, Commander, but we can't allow the Zitarax to claim this power for themselves. If your fleet attempts to seize control of the system, it will destroy everything. This is bigger than you or me or even your empire. This is about the future of the entire galaxy. It's a choice: cooperate or face annihilation. Velor clenched his fists. He had never imagined being in such a position. The Zitarax were never supposed to be the ones negotiating, never supposed to be the ones to compromise. But standing in this chamber, feeling the overwhelming energy pulse through the air, he understood. Humanity had more than they were willing to admit. The very survival of the Zitarax might hinge on this moment. The crystal flared once more, brighter now, as though the system itself was watching them, waiting for a decision. Velor turned toward Zather, his trusted second-in-command, whose face reflected the same internal conflict. "Prepare the fleet for all possibilities," he ordered, his voice cold. "But make no mistake, our actions here could change the course of history." As Velor's words echoed through the chamber, the tension between the Zitarax and humanity thickened. Every decision now carried the weight of 1,000 futures. The system was awake, and the galaxy's fate was in the hands of two species on the brink of an unimaginable power struggle. Reynolds met Velor's gaze once more, a silent challenge in his eyes. "It's time to choose, Commander. Will you be a conqueror, or will you be a partner?" Velor didn't answer immediately. He had only one choice now, and it wasn't one he could make lightly. The Zitarax had arrived to claim Earth, but the power of the system had changed everything. He was no longer fighting for dominance. He was fighting for survival. The chamber grew silent, the air crackling with the hum of the crystal's energy. Velor stood motionless, the weight of the decision pressing down on him like a physical force. Everything he had fought for, everything his people had worked to achieve, had led to this moment. Yet for the first time in his life, the path forward wasn't clear. The Zitarax were no longer the apex predators of the galaxy. They were facing a power that dwarfed them, a force they had no true understanding of. And humanity, once seen as weak and primitive, now held the key to that power. Reynolds stood beside him, his expression unyielding, but there was something else there too, a quiet confidence. He knew that humanity had reached a precipice, but unlike the Zitarax, he wasn't afraid. For humanity, the system was a gift, one that had been long hidden, waiting for the right moment, the right people, to unlock its potential. "I understand now," Velor said, his voice low. "You didn't just survive the tests of your ancestors. You were meant for this, to awaken it, to control it. And now, you want us to help you." Reynolds nodded, his eyes not leaving the glowing crystal. "Not help. Partner. This power is far too great for any one species to control. But together, we can ensure it is used for the benefit of all. It's not about domination, Commander. It's about stewardship. The galaxy doesn't need more conquerors. It needs protectors." The weight of Reynolds' words settled over Velor like a storm. In that moment, the Zitarax commander saw the full extent of humanity's potential, not as a young nascent species, but as a species that had been chosen for something far greater. The system wasn't just a relic, it was a tool, a weapon of unimaginable power that could reshape the universe. And humanity had the right to wield it, not alone, but in cooperation with others. Velor turned toward his officers. Zather's face was unreadable, but the other Zitarax soldiers looked uneasy. The Zitarax had come to conquer, to claim Earth and its resources. But now they were being asked to share what they had always taken for granted: power. Reynolds stepped forward, extending his hand. "We can't do this without you, Commander. The Zitarax, with your knowledge, your strength, together, we can shape the future of this galaxy. The system, the power, it can heal, it can rebuild, but only if we unite. Velor hesitated for a moment, then looked at Reynolds's outstretched hand. For the first time, he truly saw the humanity in him. The same humanity that had reached out to make peace despite the fear of the unknown. He knew what the Zutarax had come for, and he knew what they stood to lose. But there was no denying the truth anymore. The time for conquest had passed. The age of domination was over. Slowly, he stepped forward and took Reynolds's hand. "Then we will walk this path together," Velor said, his voice resolute. "We are not conquerors. We are partners." The crystal flared one last time, its energy flowing outward, enveloping the chamber. The ground shifted, and for the first time, Velor felt the weight of the galaxy shift with him. The system was no longer a weapon, it was a beginning. A new chapter for both humanity and the Zutarax. As the light from the crystal washed over them, Velor understood. This was no longer just about Earth. It was about the future of the entire galaxy. And in this new dawn there was hope, for cooperation, for understanding, and for a future where power was shared, not taken. The Zutarax had arrived to conquer. But in the end, they had learned the most important lesson of all, that some things are too great to possess. Some things are meant to be shared.